the 25th of October 2007 marked a major milestone in the history of aviation as the largest ever passenger aircraft. The Airbus A380 took to the skies for its first ever commercial flight, donning the Singapore Airlines livery as it flew from Singapore City to Sydney. To many, it was a bold declaration by Airbus that nothing would stop it from achieving its dream of ruling the skies in the long-haul high-capacity niche. However, in the following years, the dream faded quickly as airlines favored smaller, more efficient jets. By 2019, the dream had become a nightmare, and the production of the A380 stopped. Now, 6 years later, Airbus has revealed a daring new plan to replace what the A380 left behind. The question is, will this bold move finally succeed? Or will it drain billions and collapse like the superjumbo before it? Stay tuned. Before we get to the daring plan that the European aircraft manufacturer has hatched, we first need to set the stage by looking at the rise of the Airbus A380 and its shocking fall from grace and into oblivion barely over a decade since it entered commercial service, and why Airbus really needs to fill the gap left by the superjumbo. To do that, let us go back to the 1990s when it was clear that Airbus had come of age and was equally capable of dominating the commercial aviation sector, just as Boeing had done for decades. During this decade, the two companies were going neck to neck, both in the short to medium haul and long haul niches. In the short to medium haul division, Airbus had the A320 family aircraft, while Boeing was shining with the 737 family. In the long haul niche, Airbus had the A330 family aircraft, while Boeing had the 747 and the newly launched 777, which was proving to be a darling of airline. Now, this meant one thing. In the long-haul niche, Boeing had a more competitive edge over Airbus, as it offered airlines two options compared to Airbus's only option, the A330. This meant that Airbus had to get to the strategy table and come up with a plan to be at par with Boeing on this front. And with that, in 2000, a decision to develop the Airbus A380 was made. To reaffirm its commitment, Airbus announced that it was going to inject a whopping $25 billion into the program. It also announced that the aircraft in mind would be a full double-deck machine, unlike the 747, whose upper deck only occupied the front part of the aircraft. In addition to that, the plane maker announced that it would have the capacity to accommodate up to 853 passengers, this being about 41% more than the 747, assuming an all-economy configuration. 7 years later, the A380 entered commercial service with Singapore Airlines as the launch customer. With it, the industry had made a major stride that would take decades to surpass. From a quieter and wider cabin to straight out almost defying the laws of physics, the A380 was in a class of its own, and Airbus was adamant that this would be the silver bullet that would position it at the helm of the market. However, within a short time, reality started crippling as the A380 started showing signs of being a market failure, as airlines either avoided placing orders, canceled their existing orders, or converted them to other Airbus aircraft types. One might ask, why did the A380 start flopping almost immediately after entering commercial service? To begin with, its capacity, which Airbus actually thought would be a major selling point, turned out to be a pain point. First off, the A380 was just too big for most carriers to keep profitable. In a typical three-class setup, it carried about 525 passengers. According to analytical studies that had been conducted relating to the feasibility of the aircraft, airlines needed to fill the aircraft to at least 80% load factor on every flight, translating to close to 500 seats. On paper, that might seem like an easy thing to do, but try to do that consistently and you start to see why the A380 quickly became unpopular. For instance, a route like London to New York might fill the required load factor during peak season, but try running the same aircraft midweek in February. When demand slumps, suddenly hundreds of empty seats turn the world's largest passenger jet into a money-losing giant. Furthermore, due to its sheer size and its maximum takeoff weight of almost 1.3 million pounds, the A380 needed 4 turbofan engines that were nothing but fuel guzzlers. In cruise, the A380 could burn about 12 tons of fuel per hour. That's roughly 14,000 liters every 60 minutes. Let's break that down per seat. In a 3-class layout with about 555 passengers, that fuel burn means each seat could carry a significant percentage of that bill. On some flights, the cost per hour in fuel alone could shoot to between $9,000 and $13,000, depending on fuel prices. To add insult to injury, Boeing launched the 787 Dreamliner shortly after the A380 entered commercial service. This was a smaller wide-body airliner that had the capacity to do exactly what the A380 could do and was more fuel efficient. It was rated at about 2.2 liters per 100 kilometers per passenger under typical load, a significant difference compared to the superjumbo's almost 3.3 liters per 100 kilometers per seat. That meant that the only way for the A380 could be further down. The sheer size of the A380 also meant that only 144 airports globally had the capacity to accommodate it. This represents a meager 3.6% of the commercial airports that handle scheduled passenger traffic globally. Gates needed dual jet bridges, taxiways had to be reinforced, and runways required extra length and pavement strength. Take Emirates as an example. If the carrier wanted to deploy the superjumbo to Africa, it could be limited only to Johannesburg's or Tambo, Cairo International, or perhaps Mauritius. Most other African destinations such as Nairobi, Lagos, and Addis Ababa simply could not support the aircraft without costly upgrades. As a result, this limitation in terms of deployment agility made route planning a headache for carriers. It meant that fleet managers had to funnel the aircraft only into mega hubs that met the specs, instead of deploying them flexibly where demand might grow. It is this lack of adaptability that kept many airlines from committing to the superjumbo in the long term, further making it unpopular and pushing it out into the cold. Other reasons that led to the quick fall from grace of the A380 include the astronomical manufacturing costs that were transferred to the customers, meaning that it was just too expensive for the majority of carriers to afford. Also, analysts agreed that it was released too late and could just not compete with the 747, which had a 3-decade head start and which had already proven to be a reliable workhorse, both as a passenger aircraft and freighter. To make matters worse, airlines were quickly shifting from the hub-to-hub operational model which the A380 was based on, and adopting the point-to-point model. In the end, Airbus made the decision to end the production of the superjumbo in 2019, just 12 years after it entered commercial service, having delivered just 251 units. Since then, Airbus has been largely quiet, with no news coming forth concerning a new aircraft to fill the gap left by the A380. However, it now seems that actually, the silence was not a sign of defeat. Instead, it was a moment for the planemaker to scheme a plan so shocking and audacious, it would change the entire commercial aviation industry in unprecedented ways. It turns out that all this while, Airbus has been working on, not one, but two aircraft programs. When the industry was expecting the aircraft manufacturer to announce one program, reports have emerged that it has decided to go a step further and announce two, introducing the Airbus A380-20000 and the A390 programs, the projects that Airbus is betting on to reaffirm its presence in the high-capacity niche and to wipe away the shame that came with the massive failure of the A380. Let us start with the A350-2000 and get to understand exactly what the European planemaker is aiming at. Airbus has confirmed that the A350-2000 will be a stretched version of the A350-1000. You will be surprised to know that this is not an entirely new idea. Initially, Airbus had explored it during the development period of the A350 aircraft between the mid-2000s and the mid-2010s. Internal studies had shown that the A350-20000 would be the perfect fit for an industry that evolved rapidly and which required high-capacity aircraft that were still within the range of the smaller wide-body variant that were already in service, such as the 777 and the 787. However, the idea was later abandoned, and Airbus never gave a solid explanation behind the decision to scrap it. So, what will be the specifications of the A350-2000? First, Airbus has confirmed that it is expected to measure approximately 77.8 meters in length, this being around 3 meters longer than the baseline variant. With this extension of the fuselage, the A350-2000 will be capable of carrying up to 50 additional passengers, thus offering airlines a meaningful increase in revenue potential per flight. One would expect that Airbus might need new power plants for the new aircraft, mainly by virtue of it being bigger and carrying more passengers. Surprisingly, the planemaker has confirmed that the aircraft will still remain within the maximum takeoff weight limits established for the A350-1000. As a result of that, there will be no need to upgrade the Rolls-Royce Trent XWB-97 engines, as they would continue to provide sufficient thrust. This helps to minimize the overall development costs and maintain competitive unit pricing, thus ensuring that Airbus addresses one of the critical factors that led to the failure of the A380. Furthermore, it is expected that the A350-20000 will feature a slightly wider cabin cross-section, a factor that will help improve passenger comfort and operational efficiency on ultra-long-haul missions. Needless to say, the combination of higher seating density, commonality with the A350-1000, and reduced development expenditure will undoubtedly position the A350-20000 as a compelling option for global carriers looking to offer high-quality and competitive flight services. We shall come back to the A350-200 later on in the video, so make sure you stick around to discover more about the program. For now, let us shift our focus to yet another shocker that Oris has dropped, the Airbus A380. When news started going round about the A380, aviation enthusiasts started speculating that Airbus might decide to go all out and prove to the world that bigger is better. As such, they argued that the aircraft might have 3 decks and a capacity of more than 1,000 passengers. However, analysts were quick to water down that argument. They stated that doing this would only compound the problems that led to the death of the A380. First, adding a 3rd deck only meant that the A390 would be more fuel-thirsty as it would need more power to take off. Also, this size would mean that practically no airport in service today would be in a position to handle the aircraft, hence a need for airports' managements to start investing in additional infrastructure just to accommodate the new aircraft. With that, it was clear that Airbus would not dare commit to such a risky approach. And true to that, Airbus seems to have taken some hard lessons from the A380 program and is now more focused on aligning the new product with what airlines actually want. This time, the manufacturer has decided to stick to a single-deck, long-haul wide-body layout. The design team is certain that with this design, the A390 will not be limited to just a handful of airports due to size restrictions. In addition to that, Airbus has confirmed that the new aircraft is expected to have a seating capacity of between 450 and 470 passengers, depending on the specific cabin configuration by individual airline. This means that the aircraft will be above the capacity of the new Boeing 777X, thus giving Airbus the much-needed competitive edge over Boeing in this niche. More importantly, the decision to go with the single deck also means that this jet can now be slotted into far more airports than the A380 ever managed. For airlines, that means that it will be easier to schedule flights, and fleet management will also be enhanced significantly. Additionally, Airbus has confirmed that the A390 will have a range of about 11,500 miles. This is music to the ears of airlines that are looking to explore the possibility of introducing ultra-long-haul flights without fueling stopovers. For instance, once Qantas actualizes the Project Sunrise vision, it could potentially look into the A390 as a future addition to the fleet used in covering the distance from cities like Melbourne and Sydney to New York and London. It is possible that other airlines like Singapore Airlines, Japan Airlines, and Cathay Pacific might also be interested in adding it to their fleets to position themselves more conveniently as regional powerhouses when it comes to offering those ultra-long-haul flights to North and South America. Airbus is also well aware that the usual selling points cannot cut it in the modern commercial aviation industry. In light of that, it has emerged that it is looking to incorporate quite a number of groundbreaking technologies that will position both the A350-200 and the A390 as the undisputed leaders in the long-haul, high-capacity niche and send airlines scrambling for them. The first technology that Airbus is planning to integrate into the new aircraft is known as the Extra Performance Wing. Airbus has stated that this wing technology utilizes biomimicry, implying that the wing will be designed in such a way that it can change shape and form during flight in an effort to maximize its aerodynamic efficiency. Think of it as a bird changes the shape and form of its wings as it flies to optimize its aerodynamic properties. The plane maker has already tested this design and found its effectiveness in enhancing the overall fuel consumption and reducing carbon emissions. And there's a big picture into this story. By integrating this wing technology, Airbus will position itself as a manufacturer committed to modern sustainability standards. For airlines, that's bound to become a major selling point. With it in their fleets, these carriers will be guaranteed lower fuel costs, translating to reduced operating costs. More importantly, the emissions reductions will be pertinent in helping them move closer to the industry's net zero 2050 targets. Another technology that could revolutionize the industry if Airbus managed to launch it in the new aircraft is the Zero-E program. Here, the plane maker is looking to replace the legacy fossil fuels with an electric propeller system that will be powered by hydrogen fuel cells that transform the hydrogen into electricity through a chemical reaction. Now integrating this technology into the A390 and A350-20000 could further position Airbus as a leader in sustainable aviation. Findings have shown that hydrogen propulsion systems could also end up being more cost-efficient in the long run. This means that apart from helping airlines meet modern industry sustainability goals, it will also be instrumental in helping minimize operational costs. The money saved could then be injected in other operational areas such as marketing and research and development to find new ways through which these carriers can offer more innovative and high-quality services, thus enhancing their competitiveness in the market. Other technologies that could make the A350-2000 and the A390 instant hits in the market is engine technology, particularly in the event that the hydrogen technology is not yet ready for commercial utilization in time. Here, Airbus might look into the possibility of offering multiple engine options just to sweeten the deal further. Apart from the Rolls-Royce Trent XWB-97 that can power the aircraft manufacturer might also look at the new Rolls-Royce UltraFan. This is a new high-bypass geared turbofan engine demonstrator that Rolls-Royce has been working on for the last 1 decade. This engine is expected to be up to 25% more fuel efficient than other engines in its category, thus promising extensive savings when it comes to fuel costs. Rolls-Royce has also stated that it will be quieter and have a significantly longer life on wing, meaning that carriers will not need to deal with frequent aircraft downtimes during engine service. It is also possible that Airbus will utilize carbon fiber reinforced plastic in an effort to reduce the weight of the fuselage and, by extension, reduce drag and further boost the overall fuel efficiency of these new jets. Carbon fiber reinforced plastic is a composite material that is much lighter than traditional aluminum alloys, yet maintains exceptional strength and rigidity even when subjected to extensive stress, as the one characterizing flight conditions. By replacing heavier metals with this material, the empty weight of the new aircraft will drop significantly, which in turn will reduce takeoff weight and wing loading. Lower weight directly translates into less lift required, which reduces induced drag during cruise. With lower drag, the engines will also need less thrust to maintain airspeed, resulting in better fuel efficiency and reduced carbon emissions. Additionally, the superior stiffness associated with this material will allow engineers to optimize the aerodynamic shape of the fuselage, thus smoothing airflow and further enhancing efficiency. This is yet another approach that Airbus can adopt as it seeks to incentivize airlines to purchase the new aircraft due to their impressive fuel-saving margins. That said and done, is the move by Airbus to launch these two aircraft as replacements of the A380 feasible? Or is it just another risky move that will end up being a loss-making venture? Considering the current industry dynamics, it is logical to conclude that Airbus might strike a gold mine with this move. For starters, several key industry players have voiced their open desire for larger wide-body airliners than what is currently in the market. For instance, Emirates chief executive, Sir Tim Clark, has been vocal of the imminent demand for this caliber of aircraft in the near future. Speaking during an interview with Airlines magazine, Sir Tim said, "I worry about how we will manage the network when our A380s become obsolete. We fly them with an 85% load factor and demand is increasing. According to his calculations, passenger demand should triple in the next 15 years. As such, there will be a need for many smaller wide-body airliners to cater to this demand. The question is, will the existing airport infrastructure be capable of supporting all these aircraft? That is where bigger aircraft such as the A390 and the A350-20000 come in. With their high seating capacities, only a smaller number of these aircraft will be needed, hence averting a situation where the existing airport infrastructure is stretched beyond their limits. Additionally, we need to consider what is going on with Boeing at the moment and use that to determine whether Airbus really stands a chance with these aircraft. Currently, Boeing is grappling with multiple quality control issues that have resulted in significant delays in the certification of the Boeing 777X aircraft. These issues range from overheating of the General Electric GE9X engines to structural integrity shortcomings that have culminated in the discovery of cracks in the thrust links. Now, the delays in the certification of the aircraft have impacted a number of airlines significantly. So much so that they have been forced to spend billions of dollars to retrofit their aging aircraft just to keep them flying for longer as they await the new 777X. Now, if Airbus can manage to position the A350-20000 and the A390 as more reliable alternatives to the 777X, we might see a significant market shift as many airlines place orders for these aircraft while snubbing the American aircraft manufacturer. We cannot overlook the unit price of these aircraft as yet another key factor that will determine their feasibility in the market. Remember that one of the reasons behind the A380 being unpopular was its astronomical unit price, which locked many airlines out. That said, Airbus must ensure that the price tags attached to these carriers are competitive enough to make many airlines attracted to placing orders for them. Now, all that remains is to see how the aircraft manufacturer will navigate building two aircraft at the same time and deliver within the set timeline. Remember to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and we shall see you on the next one.